Does anybody else have the late for a bus, but too embarrassed or unfit to burst into a run, walk?
Who would abandon you?
With successful comedians like Miranda Hart and Sarah Millican selling out shows across the country, it's hard to believe we are still debating whether women can be funny.
No, do whatever you want, live it up, it's your life, but it better be good. You better be the best at it because your brother's a lawyer and we're very proud of him.
So like a lady, I eventually had to puke.
Buy me a double wine.
Like, I've always wanted to be like that. Instead, I'm more like,
You'll do.
And there are many more female comedians performing stand-up across the country. So why aren't we seeing more of them on our TV screens? I've been finding out whether there is a lack of opportunities for all comedians, or if sexism in comedy has gone beyond a joke.
So, if that female comic happens not to be funny, people will assume all female comics aren't funny. If a male comic isn't funny, nobody's going to go, well, that's it. No, men, they're just not funny.
I got cancelled in March because they said there were too many women on the bill.
You wouldn't want to be there if you're the token woman and you're only there because you're a woman. You'd want to be there because you're funny.
We worked in a venue not that long ago that didn't like the fact that we were three women running a comedy club and believed that we didn't understand how business worked because we were women.
Welcome to Mock the Week. I'm Dara Breen.
Rewind to January 2014, and BBC Director of Television Danny Cohen said we wouldn't be seeing any more of this on our TV screens. He said there was no excuse for not having a woman on a comedy panel show. So how do the women actually working in the industry feel about this? London has more clubs, comedians and promoters than any other city on the planet. The volume of talent and competitive nature of the stand-up circuit has led to London being dubbed the unofficial comedy capital of the world. And Camden Comedy Club hosts live stand-up 7 nights a week.
I told my housemate I was Welsh the other day and he said, I knew there was something wrong with you.
Comedian Jenny Collier was cancelled by another promoter because there were too many women performing at the gig.
And I got cancelled from a show because there was too many women on the bill, right? On International Women's Day. Seriously, when I got that I was like, what? Bullshit, right? And as soon as I got this email, I immediately screenshot it and I put it on Facebook and Twitter, and it got retweeted by like thousands of people.
The gig was due to be in May, and I got cancelled in March because they said there were too many women on the bill. The venue had decided they didn't want too many women. They sent me that email on International Women's Day, which you just couldn't make up. It was a ridiculous email to send any day of the year, but International Women's Day is pretty ridiculous. And it just got a huge support and went viral.
Despite being caught in the middle of a major sexism row, which drew attention from big names such as Jason Manford and Gina Yashir, Jenny says she hasn't had any real problems on the comedy circuit.
When people say, is it hard for a woman, I just say, well, I've never tried it as a man, so I don't know. So I've never really experienced any problems. So I think they just need to get out there and do it. But I think there is less women who want to do it.
Chatback Comedy Club runs nights in Camden and Canterbury where it was established. Founded by Sam Gardner and Lucy Dancer, the club is now run by Lucy and 2 other women. It's January 2015 and Chatback is celebrating its 5th birthday, and in unusual fashion for the comedy circuit, all bar one of the comics are female.
I think the reason we don't often have so many female dominated shows is partly because, well, there aren't as many female comedians out there often on our level.
No, not necessarily. It's not even necessarily on our level. It's just, I don't know. To be honest, I think it's more from an audience's perspective, necessarily, not necessarily even from women being comedians. So people already have this perspective of women not being funny. So we tend, not through any fault of our own, I think, but we end up just having quite a male-dominated lineup sometimes.
Running a comedy club means Grace and Faith have seen the darker side of the industry.
I'm really, really close to a female comedian, and I won't say her name just in case. But she was called in to do a gig, and they cancelled her because they said, "Oh, we've already got another female that night, so we don't want too many females on a bill." And you just think, why?
Yeah.
And it's not just the comedians having to battle sexist attitudes.
We worked in a venue not that long ago that didn't like the fact that we were 3 women running a comedy club, and believed that we didn't understand how business worked because we were women. And
therefore tried to get away with certain things.
I'm a professional technician. I know all about lights and sound, and he wouldn't let me plug in equipment because he said I'm a girl and I don't know what I'm doing.
Stand-up comedian Maureen Younger runs all-female lineup comedy nights in Birmingham, Coventry and London. On the first Thursday of every month, Retro Bar on London Strand is packed with an audience eager to see what the latest cohort have to offer.
When the bride and groom are dancing, that you pin money on their clothes. So when you're pinning that £50 note, make sure you stick it in hard, so it hurts them as much as it hurts you.
Yeah, January, worst month of the year in my opinion, because it is the you're fat, you're lonely month. Did you know that?
They just say, look, it's very interesting. It is, but I think I'll laugh when I get home.
We have an all-female lineup. Obviously, men are allowed in the audience as long as they laugh. It's real fun. There's certainly a difference between when you have a night when it's all-female lineup. It just seems to be more friendly, more fun, and it's just a big laugh, I think, for the comics and for the audience as well. So they're really enjoyable nights. So I think you're more liberated because so you take more risks and you try out more new stuff because you just feel it's like a safe space in a way. I mean, we live in a society where the society is inherently misogynist and sexist, and then somehow people are very surprised that comedy isn't an exception to the rule. If you look at most industry, the people at the high echelons, it was an industry where people place value on that industry. In the high echelons, or the majority of people will be male.
I pretend to be fat to get a seat on the tube. Look at this.
Maureen believes both men and women give female comedians a harder time about being funny.
On a mainstream night, generally there'll only be 1 female comic max. So if that female comic happens not to be funny, people will assume all female comics aren't funny. If a male comic isn't funny, nobody's going to go, well, that's it. Now men, they're just not funny. They'll just assume that comic is awful. And so the problem is when you're a female comic, if you're doing the bigger clubs, not only do you have to do well, you have to do really, really, really well. Because if you don't, they'll assume that you're not everybody, but quite a few will assume that you're not that good. Whereas if a male comic has a so-so gig, they'd probably give him another chance because they'll assume he just had a bad gig, not that he's not good. So you have that kind of thing, and there's also the networking. Have 3 or 4 male comics together. You'll be gigging a lot. They'll pass on names of promoters. I mean, that's normal. Whereas we only time we ever get to gig with other women is generally at these nights. You don't see you won't gig with another female comic normally. It's very rare.
So will a woman on every BBC panel show be enough to change these attitudes? The lack of funny females on our screens is a problem highlighted often in the media. Panel show regulars like Alan Davis and Dara O'Brien have waded into the debate, accusing the BBC of encouraging tokenism. Meet actress and comedian Samantha Baines. She made the move into stand-up last year and has been gigging up and down the country ever since. Tonight at Apples and Pears Cocktail Bar in Aldgate, Sam is opening the show.
Hello, front row. It looks like you're drinking porridge. That's a cool cocktail, isn't it? I've had comments from promoters about the size of my tits and whether that relates to my comedy, and I've had comments from other comedians. We all had to get in a car on the way back from a gig, and there were too many comedians, and the MC said that I'd have to sit on someone's lap, and there's definitely been some horrible comments and some horrible situations.
But while Samantha is pleased with the BBC's decision, she doesn't think women should be singled out.
We have seen in the past a lot of all-male panel shows, so I do think women need to be represented, and by saying we have to have one, it forces people to start representing women. But equally, I don't think comedians who aren't ready for it or don't want to do it shouldn't be like forced into the show because there has to be a woman. And I know people who've done panel shows can feel like the token woman.
You've taken off your tie, he's letting his hair down. He's come out for a comedy night, he's like, I'm taking this off, I'm gonna fucking heckle the women comedians.
Until we get equality in all areas as women, then a little bit of positive discrimination has to happen, but then equally, you wouldn't want to be there if you're the token woman and you're only there because you're a woman. You'd want to be there because you're funny or, you're clever or you've got really great business sense and you're going to drive that company forward.
I think people would have the good sense. The reality is that, yes, there are places that are below sea level, but they have been reclaimed land and there's been a lot of projects that have been in place to make that land livable over
Kate Smurthwaite is a political activist and stand-up comedian who believes sexism should be viewed in the same way as racism.
If you sit around saying, I don't think black people should be dentists, people go, get out, what are you doing in my cafe? Who talks like that? That's ridiculous. But saying women aren't funny is kind of normal. People say it all the time and they get away with it.
And what does Kate think about current comedy panel shows?
There's a whole TV channel that was launched a few years back now, that's exclusively for comedy shows, TV, panel shows, chat shows, stand-up comedy. And they communicate their whole ethos by calling themselves Dave. And if there was a channel called Kate, it would have cookery on. Fact. We accept this. Comedy, Dave. That's what, it's not called Raj, it's not called Suzanne, it's called Dave, because that's who likes comedy, Dave. And actually, if you watched it, the average panel show has more Daves than it does women, so they're right in a way, they've created a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Funny Women is an organisation run by Lynn Parker, providing opportunities for female comedians. For the last 13 years, Lynn has been promoting diversity within the comedy industry.
I still hear horrendous stories about promoters not booking enough women, but the point is there are a lot more female performers out there now, and there is a sort of turning point where you can start to see the change. So there are promoters now who will go out and make sure they have an equal number of men and women. We shouldn't be discriminating at all. We should be representing society as it is, and never more so than on a comedy stage, which is a reflection of society.
It's International Women's Day in Kilburn, and 16 female comedians from across the globe are performing at the North London Tavern to celebrate. Samantha says working with so many other women is a novelty.
It is very rare to do a gig that would be an all-female lineup unless it was billed as a all-female night. Whereas I'm sure for male comedians, they've done gigs where it's been an all-male lineup and it's not seemed weird.
On the way here as well, I got an email, for a feedback from a promoter. I won't mention any names, because you're all in shit. I had feedback from a gig I did. He was like, I really like your jokes, I really like your performance. Just a little note though, you might want to work on your stage persona because you're quite attractive for a comedian. And can women be funny and sexy?
It is sometimes harder to be booked as a woman because some promoters will look for their 1 or 2 female acts, and then if they've already booked them for that night, you'll have to wait till the next night. But things are changing.
Danny Cohen says we'll be seeing more women on our screens when it comes to BBC comedy panel shows. But he wouldn't encourage a 50-50 split between male and female performers. However, the female comedians are asking, why stop at 1?
1 is not enough, funnily enough. I think that as soon as you've got 1, she becomes the representative for all womanhood, and that's a problem.
I think people should be booked on merit, but there are such great female comedians out there that it's ridiculous that there aren't more of them on TV.
The more you see it, the more it is changing the way those shows look, and they are changing for the better.
And while an International Women's Day gig featuring 16 female comedians won't make the headlines, it's a sign that things are changing, and there are plenty of women ready should the BBC come calling.